We do not produce more than that because there will be nowhere to sell. With this situation, when we received several demands and requests not only from Italy but from some other European countries about increase of supply, first of all is the source. We need to find the source. And as I said, partly it will be due to the optimization of the losses of gas internally. Partly it will be due to the solar and wind substitution of natural gas, and partly it will be due to the new production. Production from new fields, we expect next year already from Absheron field to have 1.5 billion cubic meters more. And we expect from some other fields. Apart from that, of course, there is a capacity of the pipelines also is important. Southern Gas Corridor is an integrated pipeline system, which, for instance, TANAP has one diameter and TAP has different diameter. TANAP can transport more than 30 BCM, TAP can transport 10 BCM. Why? Because it was a market. We were supposed to sell to Italy 8 BCM. And for that purpose, the shareholders of TANAP, including SOCAR, which has only 20% there, designed the pipeline, volume so that not to have additional expenses. We did not expect additional gas to come in the nearest future. Therefore, design of the TAP was different. Is it possible to expand it? Yes, it is possible. By adding pump stations, it can be expanded up to 20 billion cubic meters. In other words, Italy can get as much as twice as much as they get today. But for that purpose, TAP team should get together, and that was part of my discussions with Prime Minister Draghi and then with Minister De Maio, who visited us here. Shareholders of TAP need to agree on additional investment program, how to expand it, and to look from technical point of view. I don't want to go into too much technical details, but it is not something which can be done in 1 month. It is not possible technically. So, in the meantime, there are other ways to have interconnectors. For instance, now the construction of interconnector between Bulgaria and Greece is in final stage. And I got information from our Bulgarian colleagues that by September it will be in operation. There are other projects to interconnect European gas distribution network. So all that is on our agenda. We never planned to replace Russian gas. It is not possible because of the difference of volumes. And we never had any intention to compete on the European market. We just wanted to have an access to European market because it is the best. It is regulated by regulations. It is stable. And it's a market with the highest price. Today we sell the gas to different consumers, and the best price is in Europe, so it's commercial. So we didn't have any intention to have a rivalry or competition with Russia, and I can tell you that our energy policy was never questioned by Russia. We never had any kind of discussions or kind of questions, so I'm sure this will not negatively influence our relations with Russia. Thank you.
Our next question to Mrs. Alena Livko.
Your Excellency, thank you for having us here today, and thank you for your time. My name is Alena Livko. I am head of strategy of a London-based think tank, Henry Jackson Society, but I am also a former member of Parliament of Ukraine, and my question stems from that today. Based on the experience that Azerbaijan had with the war, with the long-term occupation, with the liberation of territories now, what one advice would you personally have for Ukraine today? Thank you.
Well, based on our experience, the most important is never agree to occupation. You know, during times of negotiations, there were different moments and different messages which I was receiving from Western colleagues. And one of them was that you have to take into account the reality. Azerbaijan lost the First Karabakh War, and your, how to say, actions must be based on the reality. There have been attempts to, how to say, advise us that we need to consider issue related to our territorial integrity. And I was always saying no. I was saying that never Azerbaijan, myself, and the people of Azerbaijan will agree to create another Armenian fake state on our territory. Never. If necessary, we will fight until the death. And my comments sometimes were interpreted as very hostile, aggressive. I was always criticized for rhetorics. Armenian leaders always were praised for being constructive. Yes, they were constructive. They wanted to seal the occupation. They wanted us to agree to give independence to separatists in Nagorno-Karabakh. They wanted to keep big part of our territory, particularly territory between former Nagorno-Karabakh autonomous oblast and Armenia, under their control. And my position was no, we will never agree. So first, based on our experience, is never agree on violation of territorial integrity in any case. Second, what lesson I learned from this time of occupation, to rely on your own resources. Third, do not rely on international organizations' decisions and resolutions. They don't have any value. UN Security Council adopted 4 resolutions demanding withdrawal of Armenian troops, complete and immediate, from our territories, which were not implemented for 27 years. We implemented them themselves. And those who adopted those resolutions, 3 countries, permanent members of Security Council, were co-chairs of the Minsk group. And I was telling also them, why don't you implement resolutions which you adopted? And the answer was obvious. The situation with occupation was acceptable to them. It was acceptable to Armenia, it was acceptable to Minsk group co-chairs, it was not acceptable to us. And we were minority. And we had to live in the real world and understand that there'll be no help from international community. I'm talking now not about situation in Ukraine, it's a little bit different in this respect, but about us. And of course, we needed to have strong army, but for that we needed strong economy. So everything was done consequently, one after another, or sometimes in parallel. And we needed new generation, go until the death to defend their homeland. And that generation was raised. And those who fought and died for Karabakh, absolute majority of them have never seen Karabakh. The young generation, patriotic, with high motivation. Of course, the most important is to have strong army, and we did it. And that was #1 for me as president for all years. That's why our military spendings were #1 in comparison with other. #2 was education. But that was also important, because without that, you will not raise patriotic people who will go and return the lands back. And of course, the high motivation. We were motivated, we were ready to go until the end, regardless who will be on Armenian side. And we recognized that there'll be a lot on Armenian side. And it happened, but it did not stop us. And during the war, I was saying that I'm ready to stop publicly many times when Armenian Prime Minister gives me a timetable for withdrawal. We didn't want this war. And we fought on our territory. And he always refused. But when he agreed on 9 November to give us a date to, that was already after we liberated Shusha. Then we stopped. We did not fight any extra hour because we didn't want people to die. And we liberated the rest part based on the Capitulation Act. So that's how we fought, how we prepared. And if you ask me what is the most important among all of them, I would say absolutely confident it is a spirit. This is the most important. You will never win a country or people who have a spirit to defend themselves. It can be only temporary. And we demonstrated it, and now we are proud of that. And we support territorial integrity of Ukraine, of all other countries. Do it publicly. Do not hide behind the big trees. We say what we mean. Yes, we have good relations with Russia, but with Ukraine we also have good relations. And the principles of international law should not be interpreted based on political preferences. We were always a subject of that because even before events in Ukraine, always territorial integrity of Georgia and Moldova always was articulated very openly by international community. And when it came to us, always there was a message, go and agree peacefully. But how to agree peacefully with aggressor who don't want to leave your territory? We tried, and I tried for almost 17 years. But then we saw it's not possible. And then we saw that the more we want to do it peacefully, the more aggressor becomes more arrogant and aggressive. And they already started to frighten us with new war for new territories and saying things like Karabakh is Armenia. But now what they say? Now they say Karabakh is Azerbaijan. And who says that? The same people who said Karabakh is Armenia in 2019. We created new reality with our own, how to say, hands and with our soul. So that's what we experienced, and I think it's important for every country, for dignity, for territorial integrity, and for justice.
Now then, Nina Luther-John. Nina.
Thank you very much, Excellency, and it's wonderful to be here. I'm a research associate at the University of St. Andrews and also worked at the Institute for Conflict and Violence Research. I feel my question has been answered already by you, so I guess this is the fate of having a late one. Sorry, I wrote it down here. How do you see the future of economic cooperation with both Russia and the EU in the context of the current developments? You touched upon on the new situation and a recently signed agreement with the EU. Maybe you could just elaborate on one or 2 points of that, if you like.
Well, we just recently had the Intergovernmental Commission in Baku, Russian-Azerbaijan Intergovernmental Commission on the 26th of April, and the broad range of issues was discussed about our future plans. So far, every year we had good results, we have growth of turnover, but of course with the current situation we need to see what else we can do, because for our farmers, Russian market is is the only big market. And of course, for Russian producers, Azerbaijani market also is of importance. We buy more from Russia than we sell, so we have a negative turnover balance. But at the same time, our export to Russia grew last year. With the new situation, with these sanctions, of course, we need to see. And you can imagine that we now have two countries under sanctions to our neighbors, Iran and Russia. And it is a very difficult situation, because how we can successfully cooperate and trade if there are sanctions, if there are problems with money transfer, and many other problems. Therefore, we need to see what will be the coming period decisions. But our trade relations with Russia were pretty diversified. They covered agriculture, services, investments, not a big amount, but still, and many companies who work here and who work, and of course, Azerbaijani community in Russia is very big, and they also contribute to growth of turnover. So far, we did not see any negative impact on sanctions on Russia, but we don't know how it will transform in timetable. What will be in 6 months or 1 year if sanctions remain? That's difficult to prognose.
Jean-Michel Brun.
Thank you for having welcomed us so warmly. I have first to apologize. I am French. I'm so sorry. That's why my question will, because I think that pen is often more efficient than weapons. So France and Azerbaijan are two very high cultural countries. Shusha and Paris are great cultural capitals. And 5 centuries before Diderot and Rousseau, the great poet and philosopher Nizami Ganjavi was a precursor of the philosophy of enlightenment. So my question is, do you plan to develop strong cultural relations between France and Azerbaijan?
Actually, we have strong cultural relations between two countries, and the history of our cooperation actually demonstrates that. In culture, in education, we really had a very good progress and several important events. And many times there have been cultural presentation, cultural days of Azerbaijan in different French cities. I can tell you that I don't remember exactly, but I think it's more than 10 sister cities between French cities and Azerbaijani cities. And it is not formal, it's really, there was a big public traffic. Also, looking at education as part of culture, it was our initiative that led to the creation of French Lycée in Baku, in one of the most beautiful places of our city, just overlooking the Caspian Sea. And then subsequently, when we agreed with then President François Hollande to create a French-Azerbaijani university, and we did it within 1 year, and also it's already working, and with very good results. So we really had a very diversified cultural relations, and they're still there. They have not been subject of certain recent developments. Talking about overall political relations, I would say that they are normal. They are back to normal, I would say. I would add that it was not us who did something wrong. unfortunately. But we understand that there is an Armenian community, there is powerful groups. They influence not only the decision-making process, they influence the brains of people. And relations with France for us always was important because it's one of the leading countries of the world. And also was important in order to present our case, to demonstrate to French public opinion that Azerbaijan is not as Armenians present us. Though we know their connections in the leading media of France and publishing dirty articles about us, 95% of these articles have been written by Armenians or pro-Armenians. We understand it. And it has never been part of kind of a big deal. France, as a Minsk Group co-chair, always was acceptable for Azerbaijan. But unfortunately, during the liberation war, there have been unnecessary steps, including the decisions of French, both chambers of parliament to recognize so-called Nagorno-Karabakh. There's a saying that being more Catholic than a Roman Pope. Yeah? Even Armenia did not recognize Nagorno-Karabakh. So Senate and the House of Representatives, they made this decision very, very, very sad. And I know very well the persons who were voting for that. That was absolutely counterproductive. From practical point of view, it meant nothing. From point of view of support to Armenia, it did not work. Point of view to work either. Only created unnecessary, how to say, atmosphere, which now both governments try to clean, and I think successfully. I had a very good and long meeting with President Macron in December in Brussels, and then we communicated on the phone. So I think it is common understanding that we need to close that page and forget about it. And for you, there's no need to apologize. French people are our friends and will remain our friends.
Now the Dimitrios Triantafylou.
Thank you, Mr. President, for taking your time to answer to our questions. My name is Dimitrios Triantafylou. I'm a Greek academic working in Istanbul at Derryhurst University for over a decade. And in a way, I'm a bridge maker. And it's very interesting, and I'm just thinking of what you've been saying today and what we talked about yesterday in Shusha, you know, keeping a balance between memory and looking forward. And the process is tough, and there are many obstacles along the way, and it takes time. It takes time to bridge communities and countries and so on. But I would like to get back to one thing. I mean, my question has to do with Azerbaijan and the European Union. I know Amanda asked the question also, but given the Russian invasion of Ukraine, how do you see relations between Azerbaijan and the EU evolve and how they could improve? I mean, you already talked about some of it. You're trying to, there's an upgrading of the PCA right now in process. We see Charles Michel's activism when it comes to relations between Azerbaijan and Armenia. You've talked about, yes, you know, getting the equal amount of, in terms of equity, grants and loans that Armenia gets and so on. But beyond that, because, you know, we talk about the new realities. You keep talking about new realities, and I know. You look into a crystal ball. We don't know how they evolve, but the EU itself is evolving. It's starting to work on strategic autonomy. It's trying to work. It has a strategic compass. President Macron's re-election helps the process move along now. So how do you see, what would you like to see relations with the EU and Azerbaijan go?
Yes, these relations are very important, and I think our advantage is that we have a very clear and realistic agenda with respect to relations with EU. I know that there are aspirations from other members of Eastern Partnership Program to have a membership, but we must understand that it's a long process, very, very long process, and in case with Azerbaijan, probably it is not possible. scenario. Therefore, we need to base our relations on pragmatism, on mutual benefits and mutual interests, and not to have over expectations, otherwise disappointment will be there. If you put a target and cannot reach, then you start to blame someone for that. The last whom you blame is yourself. You blame everybody, but not yourself. To avoid it, we need to put a very realistic targets, what we want and what EU wants. More or less it is clear. EU wants stability on its neighborhood, on its borders. From us, of course, they get, but they want to get more energy resources. That was even before Russian-Ukrainian war, and that was a strategic part of our cooperation. They're very interested in our transportation infrastructure and how can it be connected with a broad European transportation network. And that is why, for instance, when the former president of European Council, Mr. Donald Tusk, was in Baku in 2019, he went to our trade seaport to see the facilities. And when Charles Michel was president of the European Council in Baku last year, he made a regional visit to Shamachi, and there he was presented with Baku trade seaport capability and opportunity. What it means? It means that a big interest in our transportation. And of course, EU wants security and stability and wanted resolution of Nagorno-Karabakh. Yes, they wanted a peaceful resolution, but it didn't happen. But now they accept fully the new. We have these meetings in Brussels now, regular meetings. What we want? We want, first of all, establish closer relations. We don't want to put in front of ourselves, as I said, unrealistic targets like membership and not to spoil these relations. We want to have access to modern technologies, and we have them. Of course, we want to have broader access to European energy market, and this is fully in line with European energy strategy. We want a single standard approach to situation in the region, not only Armenia, Azerbaijan, but also Georgia, Armenia, Azerbaijan, to treat three countries of the Southern Caucasus from the same angle. And with respect to Armenia, Azerbaijan normalization, of course, this balanced financial and adequate financial package for both will be crucial. If this balance is not observed, there'll be a lot of disappointment, it is obvious. But as I said, we are moving on this direction. And to finalize the remaining part of our agreement with EU and to sign it. In 2018, we initialed partnership priorities document between EU and Azerbaijan, which had very important paragraph about territorial integrity, sovereignty, and availability of international borders of Azerbaijan. That was for the first time. Always before, EU was very reluctant to put such a firm and straightforward wording. Always they were referring to peaceful talks, Minsk group, etc. But partnership priority document was a very important signal, and it encouraged us. I can tell you after and I attended as a signing ceremony in Brussels. And after that, we really started seriously to believe that EU can be a fair, broker. And what happened after the war clearly demonstrates, because there was a kind of a vacuum, dysfunctional, and so that vacuum is now, to a certain degree, is filled by EU. And also, I can tell you another factor, Close cooperation with EU, of course, will seriously contribute to modernization of Azerbaijan, including young generation, education potential. We were talking about Italian Azerbaijan University, French Azerbaijan University exists. And also, close ties with EU will strengthen the secular character of Azerbaijani society. This is, of course, an important part of our state policy. And also, this state policy is widely supported by Azerbaijan population. But secularism is one of the fundamental bases of our statehood, and close ties with EU, of course, will positively influence the future secular development of Azerbaijan.
Mr. President, Ambassador Pashayev started our conference about the Latin Conference Initiative. With your permission, our last question, I wanted to give the floor to the owner of this initiative, to Dr. İlham Şifu. İlham.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Thank you. I have to congratulate you for the speed and the quality of the reconstruction of the roads, airports in Fizuli, what we've already seen, and some other infrastructure. It is, my original question went on the Zangezur corridor, on the roads and railroads, and you've already covered that at a large respect. The thing where I would like to go is if you already, it is sure you have a strategy of development, not only of Nagorno-Karabakh, but integrated Azerbaijan, and if there's possible to have pieces of this strategy that we could know about and where our involvement could be. I was thinking, coming back to Zangezur, you have in the trilateral agreement a role for the Russian troops there. How do you see that evolving if this integrated Turkey, Armenia, Azerbaijan interconnection can be made? Where do you see and how do you see that being integrated, I mean the presence of the Russian troops there? Thank you.
Yeah, with respect to the presence of Russian peacekeepers, it is a part of the trilateral declaration which was signed at night of the 10th November. And in that declaration there is a precise number of the military personnel and precise number of military armored vehicles. So everything is based on that. And also there is a timetable for their peacekeeping operations, 5 years. And if any side of that agreement decides that 5 years is enough, then 6 months prior to the end of duration, that is publicly announced. So this is, I think, important factor to understand the future configuration. And also there is a Turkish-Russian monitoring center, as I said, which monitors the situation. And basically in the area which is now under control of Russian peacekeepers, situation for 1.5 years is stable. There have been some tensions on the border between Azerbaijan and Armenia in the past. Now it's also stable, but in the Karabakh area, if there have been some, how to say, tensions, but that was very sporadic. In general, Russian peacekeepers provide very important transportation facilities for us because we use that territory which is under their control to bring cargoes to Kelbecer, because otherwise the road through the Ömer mountains is very difficult. We are building 12-kilometer tunnel, but it is not ready. Therefore, they provide also transportation through Lachin corridor when we need. And we also provide transportation of their cargoes to their peacekeepers through Azerbaijani railroad. It goes from Moscow directly to Barda, and then it's close to Khankendi. Otherwise, they have to fly by planes and then go many hours through Lachin corridor. So there is a good level of interaction between Russian peacekeepers and Azerbaijani military servicemen. And I think that, and what we are doing now, for instance, with respect to the corridors, is absolutely free from any kind of other involvement. So with respect to the transportation corridors, of course, we would like them to take place sooner than later, and Armenia should finally decide how they want to see. I already talked about that, just to add that we really are committed to have this trespassing through Zangezur, and Armenia be part of that. We even may think about some ideas about electric lines. By the way, in the memorandum of understanding which we signed with Iran, we have it. We don't have only highway and railroad, we also have electric cable, because that's also one of the routes to export electric energy. And in general, on the integration of future development of Azerbaijan, in Azerbaijan we work with respect to regional development based on the 5-year plan. This is called a regional development program. The first was adopted by me several months after I first became president in February 2004. And every 5 years we review and put another 5-year target. So this program is published, it's public, and mainly is based on the requests from the regions, what people want to see. And a lot has been done. Now what we are doing, we are working on a deep integration of Karabakh and Zangezur to other parts of Azerbaijan. That's why these railroads, airports, it's almost done. The most important now, which still needs more time, is water distribution, because we've been deprived from our rivers for 30 years. Armenians were closing the Terter River when we needed water in spring and summer, and creating drought on 100,000 hectares. And then in winter they opened, and it was a flood. So that was an ecological terror. And by the way, Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe several years ago adopted a special report which was voted for, condemning Armenia for this ecological terror. But a lot of water resources are there in Karabakh, which we will divert also to other parts of Azerbaijan. And that will allow us not only to irrigate Karabakh as a whole, which of course will be done, but also to bring that water to other parts of Azerbaijan where water supply is problematic. And that will be a very, rapid and very efficient integration. Also what is in our mind now, we have a new system of management there. I have a special representative for Karabakh. I have a special representative for Shusha. You met them. And also there'll be special representatives in other parts. Why they are not appointed yet? Because in other parts we don't have yet very active, settlement process. But that also will be done. And we are in a way testing this new model of management, because existing system of regional administrations, it was created after the collapse of the Soviet Union, and I think it was not very thoroughly thought through. Therefore, there are a lot of questions. And as you probably know, many, I think maybe more than 10 of regional leaders of the regions have been arrested for bribery, for mismanagement, and for other wrongdoings. And publicly, it was filmed, the procedure of these bribes. So it's unfortunately area which is contaminated by corruption. So the new system which we are testing in Karabakh, it will be different. And I think that there'll be opportunities then, after this final test is over, to transform it to the rest part of Azerbaijan, thus improving the governmental management in the regions. Because decisions which we adopt in Baku, they're all aimed at improvement of living standards, infrastructure, economic development, but sometimes because they are not implemented in the region, some people do not see it. So, in other words, and also with this green agenda, the green energy zone of Karabakh, I already announced it, and that means that it will be done, because I never say something which I'm not sure that it will be done. So, but at the same time, this green agenda will extrapolate to all the rest of the country. Smart city, we never had it. So first will be in Agdam, and smart village in Zangilan region. We will then transfer it into other parts of Azerbaijan. So a lot of plans we have, really. It's a lot of things to do. We work 24 hours a day. Everybody is enthusiastic, the government, the people, former refugees. We will return first refugees very soon. Don't want to say when, but very soon to Zangilan. And other plans are in the pipeline. We have everything to do what we plan. Commitment, will, resources, mobilization, unity of our society, and stability. So, and we want to share it with the neighborhood. And as we discussed, and biggest part of our discussions was devoted to Armenia-Azerbaijan future cooperation. I think they need to analyze thoroughly what we are doing, to properly understand what is our agenda, and not to miss this chance, because this will be the last. So they need to jump into the train.
Mr. President, with this intervention, our list of questions comes to an end. And on behalf of our group, I'm honored and privileged to express our utmost appreciation and thanks to you. And you almost spent 3 hours with us, and you answered more than 20
Time passed very quickly.
And you answered 20 wide variety of questions. And once
Thank
again,
you. Thank you very much. Thank you for being with us, and wish you all the best. And as we discussed, we'll think about some intermediate events before annual Shusha Forum.
Mr. President, before we break off, I would like to say something that all of us are here from 23 countries, and from our behalf, we would like to pay compliments to the people who are involved in the reconstruction of Karabakh. They are the heroes, and I think we must over here give a big round of applause for them.
Thank you. Thank you very much.